Okay, if it's okay with everybody, we'll go ahead and begin. Just wanted to let everybody know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website, which is the Center for Accessible Media and Essential Needs website. If you're interested, just let me know and I can send you a link to that website. I want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us today for this exciting fireside chat where we will be discussing the Workforce Recruitment Program, also known as WRP, and provide an overview of the Department of Defense Shared List. This event is being presented by the Workforce Recruitment Program and the Computer Electronic Accommodations Program. Participants are encouraged to add questions to the Q&A section, and these questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Latasha Oglesby, the DoD WRP Program Lead. Latasha?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Shelley. We're excited to be here today to present the WRP to both schools. We have been planning this for a while and had to reschedule, but I'm very excited that we were able to get back on the docket of things for the spring. I know it's a busy time for everyone. So just really quickly, my name is Latasha Oglesby, and I am the Workforce Recruitment Program lead, and our office falls under, as Shelley mentioned, the Computer Electronic Accommodations Program office. And within that office, we do work to assist students and individuals with disabilities throughout the Department of Defense with assistive technology in order for everyone to be able to do the job that they've been hired to do. Excited to be here with you guys today, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. I will share how the WRP creates opportunities for talented emerging professionals with disabilities and how it benefits hiring managers, students, and recent graduates. Next slide. Thank you. So to get into this, the WRP is a federal government-wide recruitment and referral program that provides employment opportunities for emerging professionals, again, with disabilities for both temporary and permanent positions nationally and internationally. So we'd like to consider ourselves a pipeline of employment to individuals with disabilities who are looking to get into the workforce for the federal government. In order to be, I'm not going to read directly off the slides, but I'm going to kind of hop around a little bit. There are year-round internship opportunities. And when we say year-round internship, the department is not restricted to just hiring individuals, let's say over winter break, or hiring individuals in the summertime. Being that someone can come in on a temp or permanent basis, there's possibilities to come in at any point of the year, although we do have see a higher participation in the summer for students who are current students in out there in the program. To be eligible for the WRP, the candidates must either participate full-time or be participating, in a post-secondary, undergraduate, graduate, or postdoctoral program, or they should be recent graduates of one of the schools I've just mentioned with disabilities. And when I say recent, DoD defines recent as 3 to 5 years. If you're looking for employment outside of the DoD, if they are going to participate in WRP, it would be defined as 3 years. So I just wanted to mention that and keep that in mind if you are looking outside of the department for internship opportunities. The participant must also be a United States citizen, either a high school graduate or equivalent, and they should be at least 16 years old and eligible for a Schedule A hiring authority. One thing that we have that is a great advantage to most people is that when you come into the program, you are not restricted at starting at what is considered more of a junior pay, depending on where you are in your career and depending on where you are in your studies. There are no pay restrictions. So For instance, we operate off the GS pay scale, and with that pay scale, it starts from a GS1, which is very rare in most cases. You most have individuals coming in starting at either a GS4 or 5 as an intern, all the way up to a GS15, which is a senior program level before you get to a senior executive services. There are no restrictions as long as an agency or a program has a need for an individual and a requirement. They can write that requirement at the pay grade that is appropriate. And if an individual meets the standards or meets the qualifications, then they can come in at that pay grade. One of the other advantages of the Workforce Recruitment Program is if the agency itself has the funding, they can extend that requirement or extend that internship or temporary assignment with no limitations. So if they have what we call civilian pay dollars within their budget, they can bring that person in. And if they don't have the opportunity to make them a permanent employment at the time, if they do have funding to bring that individual in for another temp basis, they can sign off or agree to bring that person in for another temporary basis. Just quick history with that. Up until recently, the internships were funded at a 14-week allocation, but since the beginning of this year, let's say late January, early February, there has been a change in how we do the funding for the Department of Defense. We no longer have a centralized fund, but agencies themselves still have the capability of funding internships and permanent employment throughout the department. Next slide. The WRP offers one of the largest pools of highly qualified Schedule A candidates. And in our next slide, we're going to have a little more discussion, maybe 2 slides from here. Going to have a little more discussion about the Schedule A and what does that look like? What are the requirements for a Schedule A? The department itself, the program itself, the WRP program itself, is managed by the Department of Labor, Office of Disability Employment Policy, and the Department of Defense is the largest user of the WRP. Government-wide, we represent over 40% of usership. As mentioned, the length of the WRP internships and temporary assignments can vary based on what specific government agency is doing the hiring and what's available in funding. The internships can range from hiring levels of GS4 to GS15, again, depending on qualifications. And the WRP has been recognized by the Office of Personnel and Management and Equal Opportunity Commission as a model program for hiring individuals with disability and recruiting individuals with disability. We have a website and some email addresses available here in the slide deck, which will be available after this presentation. If you want to go back and either reach out to our office or reach out directly to the Department of Labor. If you have any additional questions that we don't answer today, or if there's something that you are interested that you don't see in this presentation, you may be able to find that information on ODEP's website. Next slide, please. So I like this slide. I'm a fan of this slide because it gives a little bit of a background of the Workforce Recruitment Program itself and the history of the Workforce Recruitment Program. So this program has been around since 1975. It was originally developed internally within the Department of Navy by Mr. Paul Meyer, and he hired the first intern who was later converted into a permanent position. And years passed, and the Department of Defense decided to adopt this model itself to provide affirmative employment to individuals with disabilities. And the department transferred the WRP oversight from the Navy to the President's Committee on Employment of Disabilities, Employment of Persons with Disabilities in 1995. In 2001, the program began to be co-sponsored by the Department of Defense and the Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, ODEP. And I try not to use the acronyms because in the Department of Defense, there are lots of acronyms across the federal government, even not just within a department. So you may hear me catch myself to actually say things out versus using what we like to call acronym soup. In 2018, oversight transferred from the Air Force to the Diversity Management Operations Center, and what was the office that I previously sat under was the Disability Programs Directorate, and they began the management of the centralized funding for the WRP. In 2023, what we called DMOC, the Diversity Management Operations Center, dissolved, and the Disability Programs Directorate was realigned under the Defense Support Services Center, integrating all of its functions beginning October 2023. We recently had our director retire in December of last year, 2024, and the program was transitioned from DSSC, directly under the Computer Electronic Accommodations Program Office. With that transfer, it seemed like a natural thing because we work very closely with the office that we refer to as CAP, on providing accommodations for our WRP interns and other intern programs within the department. But specifically, as relates to the WRP, when we have our interns come in, the CAP office or the Computer Electronic Accommodations Program office treats our students or recent graduates, or let's say WRP participants, like department executives. They make a very big effort to try to reduce the wait time for accommodations when individuals come in, so that when they come in on the first day, they can be prepared to start their jobs. Next slide. Okay. What is a Schedule A letter? So I mentioned previously, when you apply for this program, that you will be required to have a Schedule A letter. And before applying to WRP, candidates should confirm that they are eligible for the federal Schedule A hiring authority. The Schedule A letter is a document that certifies an individual has an intellectual, physical, or psychiatric disability. Schedule A letters can be requested from a doctor or licensed medical or rehabilitation professional for any federal, state, or U.S. territory agency that issues and provides disability benefits. Most agencies accept documentation from any of these entities. And some agencies may require additional documentation when you bring in your Schedule A letter. Those Schedule A letters should be obtained prior to applying to WRP, and candidates are not required, when they get these letters completed by their medical professional, to disclose any specific disability, any medical history, or any accommodation that is needed. That information will not be identified on your Schedule A letter. Your Schedule A letter essentially is saying that you have a medical professional who is confirming that you do have a condition, and that they are signing off to say that this is the truth, that you have the medical condition. When you go through the hiring process, or if you go through the interviewing process, hiring managers or supervisors who are interviewing are not allowed to ask you if you require an accommodation. They are not allowed to ask you about your disability. So I just want to make sure that I highlight that, because I think sometimes that can be a barrier, excuse me, when individuals are thinking about coming into the government, and they're concerned about if they are going to face any roadblocks because they have a certain disability or have a disability. And the answer is, while there are individuals out there, because humans are humans, have unconscious bias, if they are choosing to pull a candidate from the WRP program, they are aware that this program is specific to students who have disabilities, but they are not in a place where they can ask about that specific disability. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits of the WRP. The WRP has been a talented labor resource, obviously, for many, many years. There are hiring managers with access to a pool of highly qualified candidates, again, from a year-round availability, and therefore an innovative labor resource that breaks down barriers to employment for individuals with disabilities. Many of individuals with disabilities already face and have experienced barriers, including other job opportunities, and they often result in the ability to be innovative problem solvers, a skill set that is highly sought after, specifically in the Department of Defense. We're looking for people who are critical thinkers, individuals who think outside of the box, and one of the highlights of the WRP that I like to advertise is that when you are dealing with a population who has faced some type of adversity or some type of roadblock, they have a tendency to be able to think outside of the box. And so once I learned about WRP, I have been making it my business to be an advocate, not just within other outside agencies, but within my own agencies, my own specific agency, and sharing the information, making sure hiring managers are aware that this is a resource that they can use in a very highly qualified talent pool that we need to make sure that we're tapped into. When I first started working with the DPD and with the WRP in 2023, my director used to joke and say, this is one of the department's best kept secrets. And we've been trying to make this not a secret since then. So again, excited to be here and be able to share this information. One of the other notable benefits of the WRP is that the program itself supports DoD's efforts to meet the federally mandated workforce goals for hiring individuals with targeted disabilities. And that goal across the department is at least 2%. And individuals with reportable disabilities, that is at least 12% of the workforce. This effort increases the overall presence and employment of individuals with disabilities across the federal government. And when I mention targeted disabilities and reportable disabilities, you can find and learn more about the definition of that online with the Office of Personnel Management Standard Form 256. That has a list of what the department considers as targeted disabilities. For example, some of the things that are listed under targeted disabilities would be low vision or blindness, deafness, epilepsy, just as an example. And for things that would be considered reportable disabilities, let's say ADHD, MS, diabetes, there's a broad range. And so I'm not going to give each specific thing that is on there, but if you're interested in seeing an example of that document, or you would like a link to the document, please let us know. We make sure we can provide that information to you. Next slide, please. So there is a very large participation rate across the United States, and in some cases in overseas candidates as well. But in 2024, the WRP's database included representation from 530 colleges and universities. The Department of Labor has identified the top 14 schools here on this list currently participating in the WRP. You're probably looking at this and saying, wow, Western Governors University has a ton of students who are participating. And I just want to mention that they're significantly higher because of this, a fully online university with over 150,000 students enrolled. But we are happy to see that even in some of the other universities, which Western Governors, Gallaudet, and Rochester Institute of Technology are some of our highest levels of participation in this program. I'll leave this for just a second. Again, this information will be available in the slide deck after the presentation. And so we'll go on to the next slide. And just for an example, we wanted to show you here some of the most common WRP WRP positions that the participants are hired for when they enter the department for either internships or for permanent employment, accounting and finance, administrative and program management, and that's very, very broad. That can be with any agency, administrative support, claims and investigations and processing, communications, human resource and equal opportunity analysts, trainers, specialists, information technology, and science and engineering. These roles reflect trends based on employers' reported hiring data from the past few years. However, this list is not exhaustive. Federal agencies offer a wide variety of roles, and students have been hired in many different fields based on their skill set, their interests, and based on the agency needs. Before we go to the next slide, I do want to mention that in previous years, there are opportunities for the WRP, what we like to call recruiters, or people who are doing career development activities with the students to do some type of touch base with those students. There may be some change in the model of how we do the outreach in the year to come or in the future years, but there will continue to be an opportunity for some interaction between the students and some of the analysts or the government program managers or coordinators for different agencies to touch base with the students for career development activities as we continue to move forward with pushing outreach engagement on the WRP program. Next slide, please. Connecting with your college coordinator. So as mentioned, over 530 colleges have signed up to participate in the WRP in 2024. College and grad students or recent graduates with disabilities who are interested in applying for WRP can find out more information either through wrp.gov or by emailing wrp@dol.gov or through their college or university disabled student services or accessibility student services. In the past years, the WRP has offered students informational interviews with federal employers or employees and participation in the Level Up to Public Service event and access to disability in Next Generations program. I have served as what was previously referred to as a WRP recruiter. I've worked with 2 schools in the past 2 years and have interviewed about 20 students who were interested in the programs, and essentially you meet with these individuals who are assigned to your school or assigned to do work with you as a student. And we have a mentoring session where we go over your resume. We review your resume before our informational time, go over the resume, take a look at areas where we think that you can make some improvements either on your resume, give you an opportunity to ask questions about federal service, what that looks like kind of coming in, that onboarding process, different areas of federal service. Some students are interested in working for the federal government, but they don't know much about it because particularly in the Department of Defense, people have the idea that everyone is kind of working as a soldier or an airman or a serviceman, and there are lots of civilian jobs that are available within the department still. And I know that there has been a shift in the news about the federal government. And what I will say to that is that there are still opportunities, lots of opportunities within the federal government that will have to be filled as we are looking at kind of the reorganization of what the department looks like. Next slide, please. So one thing that I wanted to share is that we mentioned the Computer Electronic Accommodation Program that was here within the Department of Defense, and it is a centrally funded program that provides assistive technology and services to DoD employees with disabilities, as well as wounded, ill, and injured service members. And the CAP, that is the office we love to, we again love an acronym. CAP's mission is to provide assistive technology and devices as reasonable accommodations to support those individuals with disabilities, as well as the wounded, ill, and injured service members throughout the Department of Defense in assessing information and communication technology. CAP does provide now needs assessments for individuals who are not within the department, but if you are outside of DoD, unfortunately, we cannot pay for your accommodation or your assistive technology products. That would have to come out of that agency's funding. But if someone is trying to make a determination on what they need, they can also reach out to CAP. And our vision in CAP is enhancing mission readiness by ensuring the Department of Defense civilian employees, interns with disabilities, and the wounded and ill and injured service members have assistive technology services, resources to fully engage their roles, contribute effectively, and succeed at every stage of their career. Some information on how to request accommodation. If you are just interested in learning a little bit more about CAP, I would recommend that you visit cap.mil. You can register without a CAP card, but once you become an employee of the Department of Defense, you will receive a common access card, and having access to that card will allow you the ability to be able to get onto certain websites that you may not be able to get onto as a civilian outside of the department. How to request a workplace disability needs assessment. Again, the information is available on cap.mil. You can create an account with a login and password, or if you become an employee of the department, you'll be able to register with your CAP card, and you can go in and request if you have some need and you're not sure exactly what kind of equipment you require, you can go onto the cap.mil website and request an assessment, and they can help you find the right assistive technology or equipment to be able to meet your needs. Next slide, please. And this is just an information slide, a little more about CAP and how they support the 5 disability categories, or what we define as the 5 disability categories, which helps us when we are developing. They are called blanket purchase agreements with vendors, so that we are able to provide that assistive technology to students or to individuals who require those reasonable accommodations. I'll go through the categories. I won't read everything, but I will provide some examples of the assistive technology associated with each category. So the first is dexterity, and that includes conditions that impact any physical function to one or more limbs. Some examples are carpal tunnel, tendonitis, arthritis, and examples of assistive technology and employee support services that we provide for individuals with dexterity issues are pointing devices, keyboards, back supports, speech-to-text software, and I just want to make a note that CAP does an amazing job doing demos of all of the assistive technology. Not everything that they have in the inventory, but they do hands-on demos, either at what is called the CAP Tech office, which is located in the Pentagon, or agencies can request demos specific to their agency and have them come over, have CAP come over and kind of display things that are available to individuals who require reasonable accommodations, which has been on an uptick since individuals who work for the department have been required to come back in the office if they do not receive any type of accommodation, to not be back in the office, I should say that. One of the other categories is the deaf or hard of hearing. And obviously, this is conditions impacting the ability to hear either partially or completely. And some of the examples of the assistive technology are the audio amplification devices, video phones, assistive listening devices. And we also provide CAP provides employee services by having CART services, interpreting services. If you require these things, that you can reach out to CAP and they can assist you with getting sign language interpreters if necessary, or having someone come to your place of business or your office for meetings or events that you may have, and you may require that type of service. The third category is blind of low vision, and these are conditions impacting the ability to see either partially or completely. And some of the examples of the system technology are braille displays, magnifiers, high contrast keyboards, audio outputs, certain software that it can be installed in your system as long as it is approved by your security or your network. Fourth category, cognition, conditions that impact the ability to process information, including things like dyslexia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, stroke, multiple sclerosis, or TBI. And some of the examples include voice recorders, cueing or memory aids, noise canceling headphones. Since people have returned to the office, you see a lot of individuals who require, let's say individuals who have ADHD or TBI, that require noise canceling headphones in the workspace, or the noise reduction earbuds, which helps them to focus better throughout the day. And the last thing, category, is the communication, conditions that impact the ability to communicate either partially or completely, voice disorders, individuals who have had issues from other medical conditions like a stroke, and they're having issues communicating after that, apraxia, and some of the assistive technology that are available are voice amplifiers, augmentative communication devices, training and other software available as well. And so broad scope of things that we're able to support from a reasonable accommodation standpoint with CAP. So just want to make sure that you're aware that if you do have any or do have a certain condition and you are curious on whether or not you will be able to be accommodated based on that condition, just know that there is an office within the Department of Defense that is designed to support all types of disabilities or conditions out there. Next slide, please. And this is one of my favorite parts of the presentation when we get to talk about the success stories. We have two that I'm going to speak about here in just a second. And we are actually lucky enough today to have one of the individuals who is on the WRP staff who will provide his own personal testimonial as a WRP alumni who now supports the program, which is amazing. And so one of the success stories is Mr. Leon Birchers. Mr. Birchers learned about WRP while he was in college from a college counselor at the University of Miami, and he had an opportunity to do an internship, well, two. The first with the Army Corps of Engineers, that was located in South Korea. And as I mentioned early in the slide deck, they have opportunities nationally and internationally. The second opportunity was with the Army and Air Force Exchange Service, where he worked on robotics process automations. And Liam's kind of testimonial was that the WRP experience helped him to refine the areas of technology that he was most interested in. So glad that Liam had that time here with the WRP and was able to use his internships to really get an understanding on how he wanted to move forward in his career. Next slide, please. And here we have Miss Dana Washington. Dana learned about the WRP through her Columbia Southern Office of Disability Services. And Dana was a very bright student. She had a bachelor's in science and human resource management with a 3.92 GPA. And although she made great grades and had a strong GPA, she did find a difficulty landing an interview for like a standard federal interview before learning about the WRP. And once she learned about the WRP, she was able to interview with the U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement and went on to be hired as an equal employment opportunity specialist and training coordinator. And Dana has since transitioned to the Department of Labor, and she now works as an analyst for the Employee Benefits Security Administration. And as I mentioned, we're lucky enough today to have one of our very own team members who is a WRP alumni. And I want to transition the next part of the presentation over to Mr. David Jones, who is the Senior Disability Expert with Applied Development. Their office provides great support to the WRP program. And David, if you are available, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell our crowd today a little bit about your experience with WRP.
Wonderful. And thank you, Latasha, for the nice opening. Um, as Latasha mentioned, my name is David Jones, and I'm very thrilled to be here. My journey with WRP started about 2007, so quite some time. But, as you'll learn while I talk about my story, I'm not a federal employee currently. I'm actually a contractor with applied development. And what the WRP program really does for all its candidates, and even those that, let's say that you sign up, you get to interact with someone amazing like Latasha, who's just dedicated to supporting people with disabilities into the federal sector and DoD, is that you really get an understanding what it is to be a Fed, right? When you get chosen at, your location, it is like an interview. I was interviewed actually randomly at DoD, several other agencies, wound up that I chose Department of Labor at the Office of Disability Employment Policy. But without this experience, right, it would be really hard to navigate what I wanted. And people always ask me, well, you live in DC, like, why didn't you want to be a Fed? And what happened really is you start learning about programs, right, within each agency. And I really liked something that I was learning about called Ticket to Work. So, did that for so many years before, things changed, and randomly learning that, you know, the contractor I worked for was looking for someone to kind of pay it forward. So with that, just want to mention that yes, I have a disability myself. Self-identifying, it's okay. I feel it really helps lay the groundwork of cerebral palsy. But through our experiences, you guys have amazing folks to work with, from Shelley and Tamara and those in your disability services. You know so much about services for you guys, right? For yourselves. So as you're working through the WRP process, you kind of have a window in. So many people within the federal government don't know what they need as much, right? But even though sometimes you know so much, the amazing thing is that when you need accommodations in the federal sector, there's not really always a price limit to help you be successful. And on day one, learning about programs that the university would talk about back then that, you know, they're out there, and being able to utilize those really, make a difference. So I went to university over in Northern California in Cal State Humboldt. I learned about the WRP through my University Disability Services, kind of how you are learning a little bit about it here. I was taking some extra time on a test, and they mentioned someone was coming through the North Coast, kind of like Bakersfield, where you're like, wait, why would someone be coming through our school or things like that? We're kind of not in LA or San Francisco, and it's very different. What's nice is that I think more universities are able to participate because it is a virtual relationship that you develop with that mentor that you get through the WRP, helping you through, as Latasha said, resumes and things like that. So when I started securing and looking at ODEP, the Office of Disability Employment Policy, my whole road as a social worker was really helping individuals with disabilities transition to the workforce. I had no idea that it was a federal job. I just said, oh, well, there's a lot of nonprofits doing this great work in small communities. You guys probably have heard of like Goodwill or other places. I know that I learned later that Goodwill employs people with disabilities, right? It's not just about getting a couch or dropping off a couch when you're going back home or off to your internship. So, and that do a lot of great things. The internship at ODEP really helped engage different programs that are, funded by the federal government to support people with disabilities and the Social Security Administration through there. There was some partnerships with ODEP called the Ticket to Work program. Those on, SSI and SSDI trying to go back to work can use an agency. And I got to travel around the country, meeting amazing leaders, meeting so many folks that work on campuses, supporting you guys like Tamara and Miss Shelley Brooks. So it's just an amazing opportunity. Today, I'm as the senior disability expert for applied development, where I have helped support WRP to ensure participation and access to the same transformative opportunities that I did. Um, the WRP didn't just help me find a job. That's really kind of important. It gave me confidence and purpose. It helped me see that my abilities, as like yours, far outweigh our challenges. To everyone here, the program like WRP are just life-changing. I urge you to use them to foster inclusion and create opportunities together. We can build a future where workplaces are accessible and no one is left out. And thank you. And I'll turn it briefly back over to Latasha for some final words on the WRP program.
Thank you, David. I really always enjoy hearing your story and the fact that you get to share kind of your walk through WRP and how you got to where you are in your career today. I much appreciate it. We are coming to the end specifically of the WRP piece of the presentation. And actually, Mr. David Jones, next slide, is going to be sharing some information about the DoD Shared List. I will let David do an introduction of the DoD Shared List, and Mr. David will be wrapping it up. So thank you for your time today. I will stand by if there are any questions at the end specific to WRP, but I will be turning the rest of the presentation time over to David Jones to discuss the DoD Shared List. Thank you.
Thank you, Latasha. The DoD Shared List is a database of resumes of highly qualified candidates who are eligible under Schedule A hiring authority, as you heard Latasha talk about earlier. Unlike the WRP, though, candidates on this list do not need to be current students or recent graduates. They just need to be, over the age of 18 that are eligible for this. So when you think about, your friends maybe in high school with disabilities or, fellow veterans and family members, it is a great program because not everyone right away is sometimes ready for the university track. Maybe they want to do other things, but they start looking at the federal sector as the next step. And getting those doors open sometimes are difficult. So what I love about the DoD shared list, it is an important tool for the hiring managers seeking qualified candidates in engineering, healthcare, cybersecurity, and human resource fields. Many of the candidates in the shared list database are veterans who are transitioning into civilian life and careers. Candidates are encouraged to upload your resume and hiring managers are encouraged to explore this resource when considering new hires. Next slide. The DoD shared list resource page, I really like this page. You can find the login links for the DoD shared list, which I'll talk about in a moment. You will also find on this page everything from tips and tricks with USA Jobs. Latasha talked a lot about the GSA level. One of the things I do want to share about that is that it gets kind of confusing because you hear about all these numbers and you're like, what's that mean for GS this or GS that? You can find the link. You can understand that, if I've graduated at these levels, what the GS level number amount is. Now, understand that people go, so great. Does that mean everyone knows what I make? And not really, but really. But there are steps to that GS level. So again, you'll learn a lot about that, including getting access to an example Schedule A letter. Remember, you don't need that medical documentation saying, I am, right? It's just about your doctor saying, yes, you qualify and signing the bottom. Um, the next several slides, I'm going to be providing kind of the how to do this. There's some little important tips when signing up. So, of course, if you wander over to this website, the dodsharedlist.com, you'll click over on the candidate login. Also to note right now, if you do have any questions before you do this, there is a contact us button right there. You can click on it and you can send us an email that we'll receive to be able to answer any of the questions that you might have around the DoD shared list. So step one, of course, as mentioned, it's easy. You click there. Next slide. Step two, you are going to be clicking on the DoD shared list above the arrow on the left, then click apply. Pretty straightforward. It also gives you a little description because I know sometimes it's hard to find those things about what it is. And again, between Tamara and Shelley, I know that they'll have, resources as well for you. So please just ask. Next slide. Here you will be clicking on a create your user profile, okay? And you'll see the arrow right there. It's kind of small, but that's why it's kind of, the arrows are kind of nice. What is it again? Next, you'll create a user profile. After you do that, one of the things that I always let people know is that you're always going to want to figure out a strong user profile. I always recommend as you do these things, please, you may see things like login.gov. When you're creating your WRP profile, you'll need to request and something called a login.gov. I always say keep login.gov, like your social security number or your bank number, very separate. like this, keep this different. But again, I say that only because people sometimes start using their same passwords that they had in college, and you never know who breaks into those things. So it's good to keep these things very separate. Um, Step 5 is of entering your name and email. Then, of course, at the end, clicking submit. Next slide. Here, what you're going to be doing is choosing your file, right? Looking for that resume on your computer. This will work on your Mac, your PC, as well. People have asked when we're at conferences, oh, do I need to use a schedule letter from a standpoint of a federal resume or a schedule, let's say, looking at a normal resume, like what's the difference? Because I'm seeing on USA Jobs all this. It's really up to you. Okay. What is the easiest to utilize? So don't feel that you have to use a federal resume at all. After that, you're going to be making sure that your email address. Now, one of the things I do have an account here, I created a separate email address, forgot about it, thinking it was the other one. So again, just a reminder to make sure that you select that. Another thing to mention is that when you're looking at preferred communication style, definitely you are going to choose either email or your phone number. You may have a third of text messaging, but again, my personal experience is that's not working as well. So I would definitely pick that. Next slide. Here, you're going to indicate your Schedule A letter status. Okay, so whether you're eligible to participate in vocational rehabilitation programs at municipality, district, or state level, as well as questions related to things like Peace Corps. Okay, so what I'm saying is, let's say you're really eager, you have your resume, if you want to create your profile, you could go ahead and start it. And then when you go to the doctors or you go to your vocational counselor to get that signed, you come back into this and then you check off, I do have that letter. Okay. Um, to find that letter again, there should be a link here, but I always say go back to that DoDSharedList.com website, and they will have that through, I believe OPM has that example letter. After that, you're going to add in your name and information. Final step, of course, press send. And what I'm going to say here is really important to remember. If you are keeping up with this, and what I say about that is every time you press agree and submit, that is updating it. You go to the very top of the stack saying, hey, I updated it. So again, the other parts of why this is important is that we want to make sure that hiring managers are seeing that you're interested in employment. If let's say you have one resume and you're like, look, I've updated it, you go back in and you keep putting, submit. Next slide. So this is the slide that provides CAP's contact information and the social media handles. It's a great place just to check out what's going on with CAP and follow them, so that you can learn about all the cool technology out there. I mean, look, if you're, just doing that, you'll be amazed. They have great, things and reminders about all of those great technologies that Latasha went into depth talking about, and even more than what Latasha mentioned. Next slide. In closing, I want to emphasize the importance of using the WRP and the DoD Shared List to support disability employment in the federal workplace. And regardless of if you're going to be just looking at WRP or DoD Shared List, I say, look, open up every door you can as you're looking for jobs and opportunities during the summer months. You never know how they're going to find you. Let's say that you sign up for WRP, right? But you get a call and it's a job from the DoD Shared List, is why I say do both. So think about that as you're going, where do I stick my, my flag, right? I say put as many things out because you're never going to know where that internship or that job comes from. And you can find jobs within DoD, which is amazing all over the world, right? So again, you just never know. Please feel free to contact us using the information displayed on the slide. Thank you for your time and opportunity to present. Both Latasha and I definitely love doing this. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. But now as to just take this to say, look, we're here to help if you have questions, Latasha, us. So we're looking to hear from you. And while you're thinking about your questions, we're going to have that several presentations in the past ask of us. So we'll go through some of those now.
Thank you. Thank you, Latasha and David, both for the great presentation on the Workforce Recruitment Program and the DoD Shared List. As David mentioned, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A. And while we're waiting, I will go ahead and share some of the questions from previous presentations. So the first question is, what are some challenges when it comes to federal employment of qualified people with disabilities?
Hi, Shelley. So I'll take that one. This is something that we've been asked several times. While there has been progress that has been made, budget constraints and staffing limitations definitely impact critical areas such as investment in reasonable accommodations and the ability to ensure digital accessibility. And we know that retention and advancement remain an issue when it comes to federal workers with disabilities. So it is important to have representation of people with disabilities at a leadership level within federal agencies. These kind of interconnected issues require comprehensive internal and external collaboration that can be difficult and take a significant amount of time. Therefore, federal employees and contractors must remain committed, whether it's making personal commitments to ensure that all documents they create are 508 compliant, implementing policy changes by getting buy-in from leadership, and support awareness initiatives about the importance of disability employment, kind of like our program, and creating effective partnerships with stakeholders across federal government.
Thank you. Next question. In your role, how do you educate managers and employees about the availability of accommodations in the federal government?
Oh, it is imperative that all federal workers are aware of the programs that are available for them, especially when it comes to accommodations for individuals with disabilities. It's kind of what we talked about today. The DoD Computer Electronic Accommodations Program is imperative that they know about that. We include this information about CAP in supervisor and managerial training, and have people understand that this resource helps everyone, including contractors, to have access to assistive technology and accommodation needs. And for managers, understanding CAP is key to effectively supporting your team members. So all DoD employees knowing that CAP can enhance job performance through accessibility and access to the necessary tools and technologies that are available out there. Outside of CAP, there are other things that are available out there, including the Department of Labor funded Job Accommodation Network, or JAN, is available at askjan.org. And it is a great resource to learn more regarding accommodations for individuals with various types of disabilities as well.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions from the attendees. One is Christiana. She had a couple of questions, so I'm gonna try to group them together. She wants to know if after, this is a question for myself and Latasha, if there's a way for her to chat after the presentation, and or maybe if there's an email
Or what
address.
I can do for Christiana, I can I can move her to the panelist side so she can use her camera so that Mary can translate.
Okay, do we want to do that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, just did it. Should take just a moment.
And we'll keep this slide up on the contact information while Mike is switching Christiana over. If anyone has any questions and wants to reach out to me directly, my contact information is available first line. I'm here 9 hours a day, so just
Okay.
send me an email if you don't want to put it in the chat today. I'm gonna be back out to you as soon as I can.
Perfect. So I see Christiana there, so I'm not sure, forgive me, everybody, this is first time doing this, so I just need to, I see Christiana's on, but I'm not seeing the camera being on. Is that accurate?
Yeah, just put your camera on now, yes.
Okay. Whilst we wait, is it okay if I ask the next question? Okay.
Absolutely.
The question is from Matthew. Matthew wants to know what determines the entry GS level. I'm going to read the questions and then we can go back. Has there been a DoD hiring freeze and does that affect the WRP? So those are the first two questions.
So can I stop there first?
Yes.
So what affects the DoD entry level is one, level education, also experience. So typically when someone comes in, and it depends on the hiring manager, we're looking at GS4 to GS7, in some cases GS9. That's general schedule. That's a pay band that's used by several Department of Defense offices when they are doing their labor categories. And so that's what the GS stands for. If you're coming in with the bachelor's, again, ranging from GS4 to GS9, depending on the requirement of the office, depending on GPA, depending on experience prior to just your college experience. So there's not really one thing that makes a determining factor on where you can come in at, but a couple of different factors that depend on what grade level you will qualify for as you come into the Department of Defense. And the follow-on question was regarding the hiring freeze. And so, yes, currently the Department of Defense is experiencing a hiring freeze, but there are some exemptions. And Schedule A, if you qualify for Schedule A, and the department has a critical need, they can bring an individual on through Schedule A. And one of the things that I did not mention in our presentation was that one of the advantages of Schedule A is that a position can be available, but it will not have to be competed. And when I say competed, that means that the job announcement, if there's a requirement and there's an individual who is qualified based on what the requirement is of that agency, a hiring manager can bring on an individual with a Schedule A qualification and using the Schedule A hiring authority without competing that job or putting that job out there on USA Jobs. So, oh, sorry about that. Yes, that they can put that information out there, and if they go into the WRP database, they know that they're looking for someone who does, let's say, curriculum design, adult education curriculum design, or design technology specific to adult education. They're looking for a specific skill set versus going through the process, which can be a lengthy process of going through USA Jobs, getting a position description completed, cleared, classified, then going through the process of putting it out there, waiting a certain time period for that window announcement to be open before it closes, going through the vetting process, they can circumvent some of that by using that Schedule A hiring authority. Now, if an individual is brought on as a permanent hire under Schedule A, just want to make sure that you're aware that you are on a probationary period for 2 years before you can be converted to a full-time employee, which is different if you're brought in through regular competitive hiring. You will be on a probation period for just 1 year. So I just want to highlight that.
Thank you. Okay, I think we are ready now for Christiana's questions. Mary needs to be unmuted so that she can interpret. Mike, is that something you can do?
She should be able to do it herself.
Okay. Try it. Go ahead, Mary. Try to unmute. Yeah, try it again. We saw that you had done it. Go ahead, try again. Now say something. Can't hear you. Mary, can you hear me okay? How about if Christiana is okay with this, if you would like to ask, I am okay to read the question if she's okay with that.
That works as well.
Okay. Mary, do you want to ask? I'm going to try to call you, Mary, if you'd like. Let's try that. There's more than one way to do this. Okay, what I'm going to do is put you on speaker to see if we can all hear you, okay? Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker, okay? Let's see if that works.
And Shelley, yeah, I was going to say, if you're talking, you're on mute also. Okay.
I'm trying to get back to Mary so I can put her on speaker. I'm gonna go here. Okay, Mary, go ahead. Let's see if we can hear you. What the heck? We all have, there we go. Let's see.
Right.
Can you guys hear her okay?
Hello, everyone. I'm Christiana. Oh, I probably need to turn my volume down, huh? Oh, no, you can't hear me, so. So I wanted to ask you about my resume.
So the last thing I heard was resume, and Shelley, you're back on mute. Okay. And I will share, Christiana, if you would like to base after the discussion, we can touch base through Teams, or if I need to set up an interpreter for a call with us at another time, possibly next week, we can kind of walk through that, and I can ensure that I have interpreting services available so that we can have a detail call if it makes it easier. And feel free to answer in the chat if it
Yes.
works. Yeah.
And I do have the questions here that I see, Christiana, so I'm happy to read those aloud, if that works. Mary, if that's okay, go ahead and give me a thumbs up.
I see in the chat that that's fine.
Okay.
I'll email her separately, but I think we're good to go ahead and share the questions.
Okay. So she wants to know how she can send a resume. What is the opening jobs on the website? What are the job openings on the website? And can she share a resume?
So I will share that within the DoD shared list, there are not job openings available on that list. Same with the WRP. So that WRP is specific for individual hiring managers to go in and pull resumes based on their requirements or their needs. There are some places available on USA Jobs that are like resume repositories, but I will share that if you do go on USA Jobs and you put in specifically Schedule A, there will be several things that come up that are hiring or looking for individuals who are specifically Schedule A qualified. And there's also a way that you can kind of toggle your search on USA Jobs and add a filter to pull up jobs that are specifically looking to hire individuals who qualify for a Schedule A. And so that's something that you and I can go over once I get the interpreting services set up for next week. I will definitely follow up with you tomorrow so that we can set up a time, and then I can reach out and make sure that I get that individual available so we can have a phone call next week. I hope that works.
And one of the things I wanted to add as you guys are talking about resumes and of course like the DoD shared list, as well as, anytime you're putting together a federal resume, and we've go to a lot of job fairs. And what I started noticing when people would kind of share what they're ready to send is that they would put PII into or PHI, not thinking about it, going, well, I'm trying to get a job. I have a disability. The federal government hires people with disabilities. And there's this thing called a Schedule A letter that is really a federal document. It's not utilized, in state jobs or county jobs, or companies are not saying, oh, we are doing this. Now, of course, there are companies that do hire a lot of people with disabilities, but there's not this document, right? Make sure that with the Schedule A letter, even with a federal job or the DoD shared list, do not attach them. In the DoD shared list, you have an option of having one resume up at a time. We have seen people that will actually attach that PII to the resume. So please make sure as you're thinking about it today and you're like, oh, I have a resume, let me get this started. And you also have that Schedule A letter not to include those. So I just wanted to point that out because we have seen there's a little bit of confusion there when it comes to these types of jobs and positions.
And David, this is Latasha. Thank you for that. I do want to share the definition of PII and PHI because everyone may
Thank
not.
you.
No problem. Acronym soup, like I mentioned
I know,
earlier.
right? It's so easy.
We're so used to doing it. So personal identifiable information is PII. It's a term that kind of used in the privacy world, but we use it a lot in the federal government. And some of those things that would be considered a PII, your address, your telephone number in association with your name, and then also your personal health information, your PHI. And so an example of that would be a diagnosis of a condition, and which is part of the reason why we ask individuals not to include that information on your Schedule A. Because you can associate that with your own personal records, your personal health records, and we don't want that information to be leaked. So while we do have all of the necessary firewalls and security things in place for the website, things happen, and we definitely would not want anyone's personal information to get out there. So if you do have a resume and you have your telephone number on there and your address on there, outside of your email address, this is Latasha. Most people would say that will be the only thing that you need in regards to identifiers along with your name. It's kind of old school practice to put your address and your telephone number at the top of your resume. People are really strongly being advised against doing that. So thank you, David, for making that point.
And the last thing I want to say on this whole area that we're talking about, I get the question when we're at a job fair, well, DoD shared list. I get the DoD part, but it's not a .gov website. So when things are kind of put together where you are applying sometimes and you're not a Fed, only feds can get access to things, right? So the DoD shared list, because we want to make sure that it is for anyone that has or, is a Schedule A individual or going to get one, that you're able to interact with it, right? And so that is the reason why it's a .com. It is extremely secure for you guys all to know. But that's the reason it's a .com opposed to a .gov. So I just wanted to let you know that when you go over to that website.
Thank you, David. And Christiana, thank you for your questions. And Latasha does have your email, so she'll connect with you after the presentation. I did have another question from Matthew. He wants to know, does WRP connect with programs like the Palace Acquire program? That's one of the questions.
I'm sorry, what was the program again? Can you say that one more time?
That program, Palace Acquire, are you familiar?
I'm not familiar with that. I'm
Okay.
not. It doesn't mean that they may not have the ability to be able to pull someone who is a qualified Schedule A individual into their program. I would like to learn more about it, though. It's the first time I've heard of that.
I can send you information. I'll send you information. His last question is, are there DEI restrictions preventing WRP opportunities with the DoD?
So the DEI has been a avenue that we have been looking at very closely. And what I'll say to that is one of the outcomes of the new executive orders and the implementing guidance is that when the Department of Defense previously, in previous years until this year, had a centralized fund that we would essentially give other agencies money so that they could meet their hiring goals of hiring individuals with disabilities. Based on the new implementing guidance and some of the language in the implementing guidance, we found that it's with our advice from our legal counsel and also working in collaboration with the Department of Labor, we have found that it has been best practice to terminate the centralized funding. However, there is still a requirement for affirmative employment with the Equal Opportunity Commission Office, and also based on laws, Rehabilitation Act, Section 501, that there is a requirement that federal agencies hire and meet these hiring goals of individuals with disabilities. And so our function now within DoD and our program function is to continue to do outreach and engagement so that we can promote the recruitment and retention of individuals with disabilities. However, we will no longer have the centralized fund that provides what we like to call previously as seed money to other agencies who may not have planned to bring interns in, not just specific to the WRP, but sometimes you have a certain amount of civilian pay dollars that you use in your budget. And when people are doing planning in the federal government, you do your planning within kind of 5-year increments, but you may have a requirement that comes up between the time that you have scheduled. All right, well, we're going to do this in 24, this in 25, 26, 27, and 28. Well, there may be another program that comes up that requires a certain skill set, and you only have a certain amount of civilian pay dollars to pay towards your immediate staff. That is when the WRP and the centralized fund will come into play for agencies who are looking to fill a requirement with a highly qualified candidate who just happened to be Schedule A eligible. But based on that, now agencies will have to do a better job at their planning, their hiring going forward, because we will no longer have what was free money to give those agencies. But the ability to still be able to come into the government under the Schedule A hiring authority is still there. And the department and federal agencies still have a mandate that they have to meet for hiring individuals with disabilities across the federal government. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any more questions in the Q&A. Hold on one second. I think one more popped up. Give me 1 second. Oh, Matthew says thank you for answering his questions.
Okay, no problem, Matthew. And if you have any other questions or have anything that you kind of think of later and you need some clarification, feel free to reach out.
Okay, I think that concludes the Q&A portion. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance and participation. Great information, useful information. And like I said at the beginning, this has been recorded and it will be available to those who would like to have information.
Thank you all for the opportunity to share today. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the week and a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah,
If you all would like to stay on for a second.
absolutely.